Saturday Man Show. Bold flavor. Well, folks, you've seen him on Dukes of Hazzard, Smallville, The Have and Have-Nots. Most recently, his movie Poker Run, that he and his incredibly talented wife, Alicia, produced. You've also seen him recently in the news, speaking the truth about guns on the movie sets and the realities of prop guns and prop gun safety. Here he is again, folks, John Schneider. How you doing, John?
Hey, I'm doing well. I had no notion that this was going to take up so much of my life here.
Yeah.
But you know, I had a fear when I was hearing the way the news, the mainstream, shall we call it, news was going. It seemed to me like they were trying to paint Alec as one of the victims of what was going on here.
Right.
And actually, to his credit, he said, no, that's not. Before he said he felt no guilt, he said, you know, I'm not a victim here, which I think that's a point for him. But it seemed to me like they were going to start using the word you just used, prop gun. This is a cup of coffee, and when I use it in a scene, it becomes a prop. It doesn't become any less a cup of coffee.
Right.
It's still a cup of coffee, but it becomes a prop because then it is the responsibility of the prop master to keep up with it. So it falls under his or her purview.
Right.
So when they use the term prop gun, I think what they are indicating to an uneducated population is that it was in fact a fake gun, a toy gun, a not real gun. No, it was a very real gun.
Yeah.
So I want to clear that up right away. And that's one of the things when I started on this odd journey, they were calling it a prop gun. So I got on my YouTube and I said, hey, hang on a second. This is not it is a prop technically, but it's not a prop gun. It's a real gun.
I saw that, John. I saw that. And when we talked the other day, you talked about the realities of how impossible it is for a gun to go off by itself unless it's cocked. And you talked about the double cocking as well. Could you touch on that? Most people have never heard this before. And I'm just so happy, man. I was thinking this morning before we got to see each other again, man, you're the all-American Southern man that says what he means and means what he says in a generation of beta males. Brother, you're just, I think the world of you personally, John, but you're speaking out, not only about how you feel about America and the Constitution, but you're educating the rest of us when we're hearing something that many would call as a bunch of bunk.
Thank you for the Southern man. Neil Young will remember, right? Thank you for the Southern man reference. But remember, I am actually from Mount Kisco, New York. I am from New York. I am from one town over from where Mr. Baldwin is from, oddly enough.
What a difference in destinies, huh?
What a difference, right? So I did a video the other day, and I'd forgotten there's actually a secondary catch on a single action Colt. So a single action Colt means you have to cock it and you have to fire it. A double action weapon is one where you pull the trigger and it cocks and fires. So that's one action. Single action, it seems backwards, but a single action is you cock it, then you pull the trigger. Okay. So on a single action, I'm going to do this. On a single action Colt, if you click it, the hammer back once, there's a safety there. There's only about maybe an eighth of an inch in between the weapon itself and the hammer. So it stops there. Boom. Stops right there. There's nothing you can do to that to make that gun go off. That hammer stays right there. Then there's a secondary one, which is the one you see in the movies when in a Western, the guy is spinning the chamber, right? Like that. That's the one you load. It's also the one where you check. So what my fingers are doing, I'm turning the cylinder to check and make sure that it's empty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you do that. The third one is hammer full back. And when you pull the trigger, the hammer has force, it has inertia, it has momentum. It goes all the way down and it fires it has a firing pin on it and it fires the weapon. The projectile comes out of the barrel there, right? So that's what happens. 2 systems in that weapon would have to fail in order for you to just let go. Well, 3 systems actually. In order to let go of this and have it come down, you have to have the trigger has to be not necessarily pulled, because you could also take a nylon tie or a piece of duct tape and tape that trigger. All the trigger does is it releases those 3 mechanisms, those 3 stops I talked about.
Right.
So the hammer can come all the way down. So if I don't know really of a world where you could do something that would make the hammer go all the way down. It would stop on the secondary catch. Then it would stop on the first catch. The only thing that makes a hammer go all the way down is if the trigger is engaged, which removes those stop points. It could be that he didn't realize he had his finger on the trigger, but he was very emphatic. Now it could be in his mind, it could be that he was holding on to the trigger and didn't pull it. Kind of like the difference between talking to your child, Billy, did you push Johnny into the lake? No. Billy, did you pull Johnny into the lake? Yes. It might be semantics, which lawyers will get involved and start teaching you the semantics of words. And then I think, honestly, he really kind of, forgive pun intended, shot himself in the foot the other night with that interview.
Oh, it was disastrous. Yeah.
Yeah. And my reasoning here is not, I have no vendetta against Alec Baldwin. None.
Right.
My problem is I don't want to see his mistake or his actions or dismissal of long existing protocol wind up being a tool used against firearms, filming, Westerns, which I'm a huge fan of Westerns. Now, Westerns will forever be tainted. And certainly I don't want this to be used to depict guns equal bad. We need to now go against the Second Amendment, because I see that's where this is going to go.
That's where it always goes.
So my fervor here is to keep that from happening by educating people about the abnormalities in what we are told happen on the set. So I'm not saying I'm just trying to protect the Second Amendment, and it needs to be protected because it's there to protect us. So we owe it, I believe, to the Second Amendment to make sure there is clarity here and to make sure that justice, truly justice, however uncomfortable, is done. And the notion that a gun loaded itself, or somehow it went from Alicia's hands to your hands to my hands, and none of us bothered to check it.
Right.
It's pushing the laws of probability a bit too far for me. I don't know what that means. Does that mean someone in there loaded it? Does that mean they want us to believe that somebody was using that very weapon for for target practice during lunch,
Right.
which also doesn't make sense because I've done a lot of movies where I've had a gun. And when you're one of the main players in the film,
Right.
let alone the star of the film, that is your gun. Nobody touches that gun but the armorer and you.
Right.
So it's not sitting in a shoebox for any Tom, Dick, or Harry to go pling cans off a post with. So that doesn't fly with me either.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that really don't add up. I think that if you had done that, well, first of all, I have to preface this, but just like Dean Cain said, and like George Clooney said, basically was this wouldn't happen to me, it wouldn't happen to George, it wouldn't happen to Dean Cain, it wouldn't happen to Ted Nugent, because we would have checked the gun.
Right.
But if it did, in some alternate universe, we would have immediately fallen to our knees and said, my God, what have I done?
Right.
I am guilty. We would have to have been talked out of our guilt
Right.
by other people. And we would feel guilty for having done this for the rest of our lives. That is, I believe, in the world of humanity,
Right.
that is a natural reaction. Because I'm telling you, when a single action Colt, when you fire a single action Colt, that thing will try to take your arm off. The recoil on that is horrific. It's
Right.
wonderful in the true movie sense.
Right.
It's wonderful.
Right.
So again, there's another instance. We're told that he didn't know anything out of the ordinary had happened. There is such a difference between a blank, even a full load blank, and an actual bullet projectile.
Right.
That it's unmistakable. That gun, if in my opinion, if it had been held the way he said, with his finger not on the trigger, and he had just let go of the hammer back here, that thing would have blown out of his hand and probably hit him in the face. I mean, it's a powerful weapon. Remember, a 44 Magnum is what Dirty Harry talked about.
Wow.
This is a 45. So by simple math, it's a bigger gun than Dirty Harry's gun. And so many things just don't make sense. And to me, that indicates that there's some sort of a narrative. I hate that word. Everybody uses it now, but there's some sort of
It's true.
A falsified or invented or embellished protective narrative that is backfiring, again,
Oh man.
pun intended, because so many things don't add up. It's not one thing. It's like nothing that we've been told makes any sense when you really break it down. That's dangerous. That's sad. And I don't think it's going to go well for, I keep calling him Mr. Baldwin because I do believe that a judge is going to be calling him that
Yeah.
pretty soon.
There's so much going on, John, to this that people don't understand. Number one, we know that there has been a long time agenda against the Second Amendment, against the First Amendment, against the U.S. Constitution.
Yep.
They haven't hidden it. The Communist Manifesto, folks, you can read it online. They don't hide it. They've been very systematic. It's not a matter of political preference. It's a matter of communism or freedom.
Yeah.
And John, you know, when I refer to you as you personified the all-American men of the South, even though you're from New York, all over the world, John, people want to be cowboys. When I go to Egypt and work with the widows and orphans with Dr. Ron Charles of the Cubit Foundation and all the amazing work that he does all over the world, they call me Texas because I wear cowboy boots over there. Well, I wear the boots because of the different things that we do. And I got on an Arabian stallion, and my boots couldn't fit their little saddle thing. And so that was a rough ride, if you know what I mean, if you can't stand up in the saddle, for those who know. But you know what? All over the world, they want to be cowboys. I mean, even Saddam Hussein would wear cowboy boots. Now, I'm going somewhere with this, John. It's because all over the world, people identify the image of the cowboy with truth, with justice, with a moral code. And so nothing the left does is by accident. Nothing the left does is unintentional or not deliberate. There's a pattern of always blaming everybody else for their problems, right? That's right. What beta men do. I was surprised, honestly, that such an alpha man that he portrays himself to be acted in such a beta way when he's blaming his gun. But did you know the very first day I saw the report that he, quote unquote, was asked to reshoot a scene? He said, "How about if I shoot you two instead?" And he pointed the gun at the woman and thought he was doing a prank, and that happened. I don't know, who knows, but it was immediately taken down the next day. But when the first words out of your mouth as a man is, "Who handed me a live gun," when a woman is bleeding out, you're not a man. And it's like you said earlier, John, first words out of your mouth would have been, "Oh my God, what happened? I'm so sorry. What's going on?" But now he's blaming the trigger. And all that to say is, not only, in my opinion, is the First Amendment, Second Amendment under attack, but the image of truth and justice in the world, that from Australia to Germany to France to Egypt, they all want to be cowboys. There's much more at stake here. And I just can't tell you how grateful I am that you're educating us on that, because now other actors are saying, well, we're not going to have prop guns on our sets anymore. How are you going to pull that off?
Oh, Dwayne Johnson, give me a break.
Yeah,
never let him break.
Well, you know who Dwayne Johnson endorsed, and you know,
I know.
Look how that's turning out.
Yeah, I tell you, yeah, and yeah. So we have a choice. We cannot, if you are in disagreement, if you're in agreement, which if you're watching us, you probably aren't, but if you are in agreement with Dwayne Johnson and his policies and his politics, then by all means go watch his movies. But if you are not, you have the power by not going to see any more films that he makes. I made that choice when he came out in support of Biden last year.
Right.
And I said, well, that's the last one of those I'm going to see. So I won't go see them anymore. There's many actors whose films I will no longer see because that's my way to make a statement. I'm not going to get online and howl at them or their policies, but I am going to just no longer support what they do. Now, this has been it's been a very bizarre time since November of 2020, where the left believes, and have been fairly successful at it, that they can speak BS into reality just by their very words. They can just do it. They can just say that something is true, say that something is just, say that something is right, say that something is mostly peaceful, and the population will start to believe it when they've heard it enough. Now they've gone too far. I don't think they intended to. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories which apparently have been debunked, but you know that there is no system with which you can debunk the debunking of a conspiracy theory, because they own all of the tools with which to debunk. Okay, so once the fact checkers have given their report, there are no other fact checkers to check the fact checkers, except common sense. So you have to be your own fact checker. You have to be the hero you are waiting for.
Right.
In this instance, I think they tried to take advantage of a terrible situation. What is the left is they're famous for saying, don't let any good disaster
go to waste. Yeah, go to waste.
Go to waste. Yeah.
Don't waste any crisis. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think they tried to make. they tried to do that with this, and they were so full of themselves, so apparently successful over the last several months, a year, that they made mistakes. Because you've got to be able to back up your BS. And at some point, when you get so cavalier and you get so arrogant about your ability to speak crap into substance, that you invariably you start to make mistakes. There is nothing about what they are saying that actually adds up.
No.
As far as any expert I've spoken to, the gentleman you see on television all the time these days, the bald gentleman, Steve Wolf, he and I worked on a film years ago, and Alicia still had his number, so we spoke yesterday about the notion that if you shot a 45, a Colt, single action Colt, it is a replica. I realize that. Replicas have a tendency to be rougher than the real thing, not more dainty, okay?
Right.
So if you pull that trigger, or pardon me, if that gun went off and your finger was not on the trigger, in the hole, we both agreed that gun most likely would have hit Alec in the head.
Wow.
Because of the recoil on it. So anyway, I think that they are soon to learn that they can't just speak things into truth. These are not, and now people are, I hate that they took our word. I think we talked about that people are waking up and going, I mean, I find it hard to believe anybody looked at what happened in Seattle and said it was mostly peaceful. Anybody, any logical human being. But there were people that apparently backed up that BS. But now they're going, wait a minute. You know, it's one thing to get away with robbing a Walgreens. It's one thing to get away with jumping into a Best Buy and running out with a television, which is absolutely all against the law, and you should go to jail for a long time for looting. I don't care how much it costs.
Depends on where you go. Yeah.
You steal a piece of gum, you should go to jail.
There
is no price tag. There is no threshold for tolerance with regard to stealing. There should not be anyway.
Right. It's
like a corked bat. There is no threshold. How corked was the bat? Well, you got a home. No, you only got a double, so it wasn't all that corked. No. It was. It's cheating. So you can't cheat. There is no acceptable level of fraud.
Right.
At least not in my mind, and I'm quite certain not in your mind either.
No.
So now people are waking up about a lot of the things because none of what happened in New Mexico really adds up to. They're saying, well, 2 and 2 is 5. And they've said that for a year. And people have gone, oh, okay, well, you know, it's a free country. Maybe 2 and 2 is 5. Well, now they're saying 2 and 2 is 6. And they're going, wait, hang on. 2 and 2 isn't 6. And by the way, I've been thinking about that 2 and 2 is 5 thing.
Yeah. You're right.
And 2 and 2 ain't 5. So I think they have cavalierly walked into a storm that they're not going to be able to walk out of. And I don't mean just just Alec. And I don't think Alec Baldwin is part of some bigger conspiracy plan or anything like that. I think Alec is a historically, publicly volatile man who made a terrible miscalculation and made a terrible mistake, but believes the left's version of 2 and 2 is 5. And because that has worked so successfully over the last year and a half or so, he tried it, and I think it was a big mistake, a big mistake. And of course, the mom is never going to come back. The wife is never going to come back. This woman is went to work and should have been able to have a club sandwich and a bowl of soup later that night, and she didn't because of, I believe, carelessness, recklessness, and absolutely negligence, because of the number of protocols that are in place that all apparently were violated or ignored. So it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad, but it's not the Western genre's fault.
No.
It's not the gun's fault. I find it very difficult to put any blame on the armorer, because from what I'm hearing, First AD went to her cart, and the only blame I could put on her is that if it wasn't locked, she's supposed to lock it. She's in charge of locking up her cart, locking up the weapons. But two people touched it after her. We should never have ever even had to talk about any of this, because it never ever should have happened.
Isn't it amazing, John, the domino effect when you remove absolute truth, when you make truth relative, when now truth is your truth?
But it's situational.
Yeah.
Situational.
Yeah. And yeah. You know, I mean, and I hate to say this, I'm in the media, but I'm producing like you. I produce positive media that speaks the truth. Folks, this whole time you've been seeing at the bottom of your screen to get John Schneider's app. I encourage you to do that. And earlier, John, you talked about people do have power. They have buying power. When you were dealing with a heartless, what some would say a heartless, a soulless, an animalistic type of mentality that only understands loss of money, they only understand loss of life. That's the only thing they understand.
Yep.
People can actually use their buying power to support good things and positive things. And, you know,
absolutely.
Yeah. And you know,
well, you saw how the vaccine mandates were turned around with regard to In-N-Out Burger, Southwest or Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines. Now the president of Africa is saying, "Hang on, what? No, you're not telling me what I'm doing with my country. This is a bunch of hooey." Right. And I talked to a group of people a couple of weeks ago, and I said the most powerful word you can say is no.